And we're live at 9:35 with Will Leach in the Marketing Mindstate Hour. Will, what's up?
Hello, everybody. Good to see you, Steve. You look well rested. You have a different environment behind you. Tell the audience where you are and what you're doing today.
Well, I'm working, but it's a fun because it involves Will Leach, but I'm getting to hang out by the beach as I work with Will Leach. There's the Banderas Bay, Puerto Vallarta, New
Nice.
Mexico. It's a beautiful little overcast morning. The weather's gorgeous. The room's nice and air conditioned.
Yeah.
And by the beauties of the internet, here we are doing our Mindstate Marketing Hour.
Well, I'm glad that I can steal you away for an hour from that beautiful place. It's nothing better than working in a beautiful place. So good for you.
I love it. This is fun for me. So the Mindstate Marketing Hours, where you learn how to use science to connect with your clients, and by using the insights from Will Leach's very popular book, Marketing to Mind States by Will Leach.
Did you bring that book?
No,
you didn't bring it.
I just realized as I was saying that how I failed.
I thought it was one of the top things you put in your bag. Most of my people that buy my book, they put that in their bag before their underwear, Steve. So I'm really surprised that people aren't using the book. All right, I always got a copy to put on camera for sure.
All right, so the Mindstate Marketing Blueprint offers a framework to identify emotions to connect with your clients. Will, I was watching your little presentation this morning while I was getting ready, the CTA 19, and I just love all these things I learned. This one in particular, you were talking about watches, and that's not the lesson today, but I just wanted to brag on you that you were really, I was learning some really cool stuff I didn't know, but you were talking about watches. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's this famous kind of story that I tell oftentimes at conferences or whatever. And the concept is if you go to any browser right now, if you want to do this, you could follow along. Go to any browser you want to and just type in the word watches and then look up all the different photographs, all the visuals of watches, all the images. And you'll notice something that's very consistent. And, as you're scrolling, just keep scrolling. You'll start noticing and picking up that all the watches are set at 10:09:36 or 10:10, something around that space. And the idea, I tell this whole long story that this concept of showing watches set at 10:09:36 in advertising has been going on since the 1920s. And it's well before kind of viral campaigns, but you see in advertising from the 60s, 70s, 40s, 10:09:36. And it comes down to this science called oblique orientations. And the idea is that the human eye finds that curves are slightly more difficult to pick up what it is. Like, a sharp corner, like, something like this, pad of paper, you see a sharp corner, the eye picks up corners. It's a little bit more difficult for the eye to pick up oblique orientations or curves. And what this watch example does is there's this whole story about how because the watches were set at 10:09:36, people couldn't see the actual time very well. And so it may just cause a couple people to stop because the human eye takes a quarter of a second to figure out what time it is. Mm-hmm. And maybe because of that, you could get some extra people to look at a watch and they go, you know what? I need a new watch. And so it's a whole long story that I tell about that. But the idea here is that if you understood that 10:09:36, for whatever reason, even if you weren't a neuropsychologist and you didn't understand the biology of the eye, even if you just knew that 10:09:36 helped stop people to kind of look at your watch, why wouldn't you use that? And that's kind of the idea of behavioral design. Everything that the book is about is using these sciences to make your marketing more effective. And whether that's creating an emotional reaction or whether it's just getting somebody to pause because they can't figure out what time it is, use those things to your advantage.
What I love about that story is that this guy that started utilizing this, he just innately felt it. He didn't have a bunch of data and research to go justify it, but he innately felt it and went with it. But I think that's a theme that is consistent to everything that you teach, is that there's these things that our brains will, you can hear the tire skidding on the pavement for, the brain just goes, what?
Yep.
It takes a second, and you may not know it consciously, but it's happening. And that's the things you're teaching us to take advantage of.
Absolutely.
When I talk about, we compete against weaponized machine learning. Instagram, Facebook, they have data scientists, they have the machines, they have all the coding, and they're exploiting these principles that you can learn about in your book. But that's what you and I compete against.
Yeah.
But yet, we can be just as effective if we can just honor a few of these principles in our marketing, our messaging, our presentations, etc., which is a great segue to the title today that we want to talk about. So you have today what we're going to talk about. Well, I messed that part up. What's the title of the day?
It's very much in the theme of Halloween. It is the importance of helping your customers become heroes. Right now in my house, we are on track of trying to figure out the costume that my son will wear on Halloween night. Even though we're not sure how trick-or-treating is going to work this year, we're going to figure it out because a big part of this time is becoming a hero, superhero. So with that, I was thinking about over the weekend. I thought, you know what? I want to talk about, our customers, no matter what age, and how we are innately designed to want to become our own heroes, and what that means to you as a brand, as a marketer, as a creative director, and how you can help your customers become hero. And there's a ton of big benefits that can happen if you can help them become their idealized self, or a hero.
So there's other books out there, in particular, Building a Story Brand, that really brings home this lesson, is that we view the world from the perspective that we're the heroes in our story. But most marketing is broken because the brands position themselves as the heroes of the story, which we don't feel connected or understood. Usually in those stories where there's two heroes, they fight each other for a bit anyway, right?
That's
so
right.
In this, you don't want to be fighting with the folks that you actually want to be the guide for. So talk to us about how do we strive to become our aspirational selves.
Yeah. So there's this whole field of psychology called narrative psychology. And narrative psychology is this science that it's studying, or it looks at how we experience life is through stories that we're either told as kids, or that some people would even say, thousands of years ago, stories were being written or at least communicated to help establish societal norms, what's appropriate behavior. And in those stories, you will find that there is almost always, in almost every story, a hero. And so entire books have been written about these stories and a journey. And like, there's one here I even have, it's called 20 Master Plots. 20 Master Plots by Ronald Tobias, or the 7 Basic Plots. This book was from Christopher Booker. The idea is that these scientists have studied stories across all societies, across the globe, and found out that there are particular journeys or stories that are told again and again and again and again. And I think even in the story brand work from Donald Miller, he even talks about that there are specific stories that keep coming up as prize winning, stories, right? It comes up again and again. Why are stories? Why can you tell the exact same story again and again in a slightly different way and still win an Academy Award? It's because they're built on narrative psychology, stories that our ancestors told, and it becomes a part of our DNA. So because of that, if you know that your customers are constantly on a journey, they may not even know it, Steve, right? But they're, in their minds, their world is nothing more than a story. They're living out a story every day. Then it's important to understand what constitutes that story. And ultimately, the biggest thing you need to know about is in everybody's personal story, they're the hero. Just like you said, they're a hero. So if you're not talking to them or helping them realize you're a hero or telling them how you can help them become a hero, you're missing a large part of your kind of customers' desires for you as a brand.
Okay, so number 2, we get closer to becoming heroes by reaching the conscious goals that we set and non-conscious goals that society or others sets for us.
That's right.
What does that mean? Explain it to this kind of dense guy here.
In life, I'm sure you guys go through this all the time, right? That in life, you set goals for yourself. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to get my college degree. I can't wait to get married. Dude, these are conscious goals. And the reason why you're setting these conscious goals is because when you reach those goals, good things happen. You feel good, right? When you reach a goal, you feel as if you're more of your idealized self, the person you strive to be. So those are conscious goals. We have those, goals all the time, big life goals, but also even small goals like, hey, I'm going to go exercise today. So every time you reach a goal, whether it's a small goal or a large goal, there is a bit of dopamine that's released, right? If you're consciously aware that you met that goal, you feel good on your wedding day. That's why, you remember your wedding day. You remember the birth of your child. You remember that first job. You remember graduating from high school, right? So these go into memory. Those are goals that you set. But did you know that there are a ton of goals that you never really consciously are setting for yourself, but you're striving for? And those are the ones that society sets for us. So being, things like being a good human being, right? Like we have societal norms, and when we're going along this journey, we are actually being kind of guided to reach societal goals. Don't murder people, right? That's a goal, like that, whether we know it, that's a journey that society is setting us up for, to not murder people. And so every day that you don't murder is, frankly, you're reaching a goal that society sets for you. And so what I wanted us to think about was that when you help your customers reach those conscious goals, or even those goals that we're not even aware of, that we're kind of, that are being set for us, and probably even more so the non-conscious ones, if you can associate your brand with reaching these goals, you can become iconic. And that's, in fact, the way to become iconic.
So by aligning with people's either conscious or unconscious goals, you can become iconic. But that means that you need to really understand the people that you're serving.
That's right. It's so important. We've talked about this before, right, Steve? It's one of the first things you should do if you're thinking about branding, is understanding people's goals. It is the target for all human behavior, is to reach a goal. Whether it's conscious or non-conscious, who cares? It is about reaching a goal. So it's so important to understand these goals that your customers have for you. Or I'm sorry, not for you, the goals that they have for themselves. And how do you kind of, push your way, or become associated with that goal? Push your way is not the right word. How do you become associated with helping them reach those goals?
I remember a conversation that I heard Jordan Peterson having over how, as humans, we have this thing about aim. We want to aim towards something. He went through this whole thing about why birth is so painful, because our brains were designed to be beautiful machines that can process vision. Vision takes a lot of computing power. Therefore, our brains are bigger than normal, which when it comes to the birth canal, it causes pain. Yeah. He also talked about how our eyes are set up in more of a binocular setting to give us an advantage for our vision to see long over the plains or whatever, to discern if danger was coming, or to throw a spear or a rock. And so this aligns exactly with what you're talking about, us having a goal. It's just innately designed in us to be moving towards something that we're wanting to hunt.
Yeah, I love the moving towards thing, because one thing, that you want to make sure in your journey, everyone's journey is about getting to a better place, right? It's not, it's everybody thinks of themselves as if I can reach this goal, I will get to a better place, that idealized self. And so I like how you just said that, because I think sometimes we forget that ultimately it doesn't matter what you sell. It really doesn't matter what you sell. Realizing that your customer is on this journey to a better, positive self. And that journey could be from now until an hour from now, or it could be 100 years from now. Imagine it's in their world, it's just this long story. And there's ups and downs. There's ups and downs like everybody's story. But knowing that ultimately it's kind of like the stock market. You're hoping that it's rising. You're getting better and better, more and more returns. People desire greater returns on their goals to become the hero, something, a better version of their current self.
So number 3 talks about how brands that guide people along the journey, this journey, become memorable, important, and eventually iconic. And so I think about how you're handing them a spear, you're handing them a rock, you're handing them some sort of tool to accomplish what it is that they would like to accomplish. So that's, if you can see your brand as this, I'm helping you with the tools, with the map, with protection, sunglasses, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I'm along to support you on your safari.
Yep. The right word is support. I think this is what, you talked about earlier on, Steve, is this idea that sometimes we get so caught up in the brand that we support or in the brand that we're doing the creative for that we forget that you are one very small element. I don't care how big you are. I don't care if you're Google or Apple. You're just one small element in people's lives in this journey that they're taking. And so the support thing is really, really important. So I remember years ago, I was running research for Sun Chips, the snack company. And I'm not particularly environmentally aware. I'm not. And I remember when our brand was going through this whole thing around, we want to be the first sustainable snack company. This was a decade and a half ago. And I remember thinking to myself at first, I was like, oh, whatever. I mean, it's fine. It's my job. I'll do it. But I noticed when you're talking to people and you're in the brand team and you're in the day-to-day and you're talking to people who are really environmentally conscious and how important it is to save our planet, you start bring those beliefs on yourself. And all of a sudden I started thinking like my world, like I'm going to save the world by making Sun Chips, one bag for one chip flavor, in fact, more environmentally sustainable. And it was going to be a compostable bag. And that became my whole identity. It was like, I'm going to, and I started thinking about the role of the brand was such a big part of me. Well, it's because I was only thinking about the brand 10 hours a day when I was going to work. Your customers are not like that. They're not. They think about you for a split second and then they move on to the next goal. They move on to the next story. And so I think what you said is really, really important. And we as marketers and as creatives, we forget, because especially if you only work on one. Now, I think with you, Steve, you probably work on so many different brands, you don't fall into this trap. But if you're on the client side, you fall in this trap because for 9 months, 18 months, 3 years, some people up there for 10 years have only thought about their brand. And you can't help but feel that your brand is much more important in people's lives. Therefore, you only talk about your brand. And in the reality of things, that's just not how people live.
Wow. I've seen it where brands, they kind of get self-centered.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one in particular, and then they went through a period or a time or a phase where they really, it was cool to see them kind of sober up and realign themselves back with the importance of supporting the client, their customers.
Yeah.
And there for a while, they were having so much success that they kind of, they were drinking their own Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, as a researcher, one of the things I started doing when I started looking a lot more at narrative psychology, all the stuff that we all tell these stories, very quickly you realize that the story is so broad. It's way beyond even your category. It's way beyond your brand. So I started, and good researchers will do this anyways, just to set up a good conversation. So imagine if you and I are, I'm doing research on you. I don't go immediately into, so tell me about the environmental awareness and what snacks mean in that role. Like, no, you say, how are you doing? What's going on in your life right now? And when you do that, imagine, you have your brand team, you're in research, you have your brand team behind you, and then they don't even bring up snacks. They don't bring up Sun Chips. They don't bring up your brand when they talk about their broader life. That should be a good realization that you're not nearly as important, even if you're Nike, even if you're Under Armour, even if you're Apple. If they're not bringing you up, it's because you're not really all that important. You are important in certain parts of that story, but not in others. So that's one of the first things I do is just like talk about your life in general. just so everybody can reset their expectations of where their brand fits in this broader life perspective.
All right, number 4. This is what we're talking about, especially true at key points and times.
Yeah.
Something we call temporal landmarks. Hey, this kind of goes with the safari theme here.
I like that. So Dan Pink, he's a famous author. You guys should look at his stuff. It's amazing stuff. And he wrote a book called When. And he started looking at moments in time and their significance, how time has such a huge significance on our behaviors. And there's a particular chapter in his book that I've always been fascinated with. And it's all the work around temporal landmarks. So rather than, I hate those words. I know you hate those words. So what a temporal landmark is, it's a moment in time that you kind of evaluate your life, this journey you're on, and you are more likely to make a decision to change. So let me give you a classic temporal landmark. It's your 50th birthday. So on people's 50th birthdays, it's kind of a landmark event in somebody's life. And a lot of people, since maybe they're thinking in their 20s, when I'm 50, I'm going to be a multimillionaire and I'm going to have, models all around my pool and my big mansion. Well, a lot of people hit 50 and they realize that's not it. They evaluate themselves. I don't do that. They evaluate themselves. There are these temporal landmarks, these moments in time that we evaluate ourselves on how we're doing against that aspirational self, the hero. Am I the hero I thought I was going to be? And the point of this is that if you can identify these temporal landmarks for your customer, these are moments where they're reflecting on, are they a hero? And most times we're not the hero we wanted to be. We're just not. So if you can now integrate your brand and these moments in time and help them become the better version of themselves, the hero, you now become incredibly important in their lives, right? So let me give you an example of life insurance. Or actually, before I do it, let me tell you some other temporal landmarks. There's a ton of them. You may think, well, how's my brand, get involved with somebody's 50th birthday party? You don't have to. There's a ton of them. The first one are firsts. Think of yourself firsts. So the first day of the week, Mondays usually, are when people evaluate where they are in their career or where they are as a parent getting their kid off to school. So on the first Mondays, we evaluate how we're doing against last week or what we have to do this week. First day of the month is a great day when people start gym memberships because they look at themselves and they're like, you know what? I've got to get in better shape. And so a lot of people, in fact, will even wait till the first day of the month. Why? It's a natural first. It's like, it's a time to reset. A temporal landmark is a moment where you're like out with the old, in with the new will. So it can be the first day of the week. It can be the first day of the first day of the month. It can be the first month in a season. So the beginning of spring is a natural temporal landmark. The first day of summer is a natural temporal landmark. There are, I wrote a couple of here. There are special holidays, Independence Day, people for Independence Day or Christmas, particularly religious holidays, are times where people reflect on their own selves. So at Christmas time, are we being charitable enough? Am I really thinking about the reason for the season, right? So people look at themselves on these religious holidays, but there's also things here about things like the first day of school. Every parent knows that first day at school, when they're getting their kid ready, whether that's a kindergartner or a kid going to college, that's a moment where we reflect on, are we being good parents? Is our child happy? Is our child ready for the next level? First day on the job. Your very first day on the job is your moment to out with the old. This is the new Will, the new confident, guy who's going to really change marketing. Your first home, your anniversary. You see where I'm going? There are in the book, there's like 87 different firsts that if you're a brand, you could look at. It's in Dan Pink's When, that you could look at and go, how do I become a part of that first day of school? Because people are reflecting on, are they the hero? Are they the parent that they want to be? So if you are a snack company or you sell pencils, that's the day. That's the day. Does your child have the best pencil so they can get to the place, to become the top of their class? Now, all of a sudden, the parent is reflecting, have I prepared my child to be the top of their class? So use these moments in time, these temporal moments or these landmark moments, And if you can do that when people are resetting, evaluating, and then they're striving to become their best self, be the person that can help them. Be that guide that they're looking for.
So I think you wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm going blank, Ironman.
Ironman.
Yeah. How does that fit into this conversation here?
I'll give you my own personal example of how a brand became iconic to me that I had no affiliation with before. So back, I was married to Melanie, and we didn't have a child yet. And I was working at a company. I won't name the company nor the boss, but this boss was the most horrible person I've ever worked for. She broke me down, Steve. She broke me down. So it's one of these bosses. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe you guys somebody out there can identify with a boss that just for whatever reason we're not clicking, and just broke me down to where I lost confidence in myself. I lost so much confidence in myself because I just couldn't make her happy. Whatever I did was never right. It was never enough. So I went into like a very kind of melancholy time where I just didn't trust myself. I didn't believe in myself at all. So I was walking. I went to a gym, which I wasn't doing a lot at the time. I gained a lot of weight, and I saw this poster, and the gym was doing this competition. He said, if you write an essay about why you should have free training for a triathlon, we will give you free training for 3 months to become a triathlete. And I didn't know what a triathlete was. I had no idea. So what is this triathlon thing? I saw it. I was like, that's interesting. And I wrote this essay about how I was in the military and how I'd become like this fit person. But now over the years, I've lost all my, I've lost all that discipline. My body looks terrible. And I didn't win. I didn't win the essay, right? So somebody else did. But through that writing the essay, I actually convinced myself that I should do a triathlon. And when I started training, I started building confidence. It's kind of funny how that happens. Like all of a sudden, I really couldn't run 2 miles. And all of a sudden, after about 6 weeks, I was able to run a solid 2 miles. And then, I about 9 weeks or about 10 weeks into this training of 12 weeks, I did my first triathlon. So I wasn't supposed to, but I was so excited about doing triathlon because I was building self-confidence. My wife was telling me I looked great. I was waking up early. I found passion. And I did my first triathlon and I did terrible. But I finished it, but I did terrible. My bike broke down. Everyone's beating me. A lady in her 70s, I'm sure, just smoked me. I can remember watching her smoke me on the run. But I walked away feeling really confident. I felt like I was this idealized, like this person that I remembered being in the military was now like, it was there. I could kind of see an element of that. Then all of a sudden I started researching triathlons and I heard about the Ironman. And if any of you guys don't know about the Ironman is at one point was categorized as the hardest individual sport you can accomplish. So in one day, you're going to swim 2.4 miles, you're going to bike 112 miles, and you're going to run a marathon, all in the same 8-hour or 10-hour, 12-hour time limit. And people who can do that, I believe are, at least at that time, especially, I celebrated like that. You could put that kind of commitment, you could beat your body into the ground over the course of a day to reach, this landmark event. People get tattoos with the Ironman logo. And whenever you compete a triathlon, an Ironman triathlon, the full Ironman, you on your right calf, you get the Ironman tattoo. It is a signal that you put yourself through the conditioning and the pain to do that. That brand became iconic to me when I started. I went from regular sprint triathlons to Olympics to half Ironman to Ironman. And because I did that, because Ironman became this iconic brand to me. And to this day, even though I haven't done a triathlon in a decade, probably in a decade, more than that, actually, because it was just before Nick was born. So about a decade. It is still iconic to me. Why? Because they were the brand that was helping me reach my idealized self. I was buying Ironman gear. Anything that was branded Ironman, I was buying it because I associated Ironman with that idealized will. So I want you to think about that. I had a transitionary moment. I had this kind of temporal landmark. For me, it was a job where a boss just broke me down. And I had this moment when I saw, and I know it doesn't fit the book, but I saw this poster that all of a sudden said, I can be something that is outside of her control. She can't control what I do at 7:00 at night or on a Saturday morning. and it built me up. It built my confidence. And this one brand was a part of that journey with me. And because of that, I gave this brand thousands of dollars over the course of 7 years doing Ironman triathlons. I could not wait, to get that tattoo. I couldn't wait to tell people. My wife was telling people, he's an Ironman. He's an Ironman. It's cachet. And so I'll always love that brand. And I know that's kind of maybe a story that's a little bit far out there, but any brand can do that. Any brand can do that if they associate me on this journey of being better than I was at that moment.
Well, I love that because I think all of us can relate to that in some way. There's some brand that we associated a part of our identity with.
I hope so.
Okay, and that's us wanting to be a part of a tribe. And so I think that you're helping us as marketing directors, marketing people, business owners go, oh, this is so legit. I need to figure out where I fit in that process with my heroes, the people that we serve.
Yep.
But you have be careful on this.
That's right. So narrative psychology is really clear. And you brought it up, Steve, right? It's that in any journey, there are never two heroes. They start off as heroes, but they end up in conflict. Why? Is because when you are on your journey, you are the hero. Like, it is your world. It's your job is to try to reach that better place. And sometimes brands can overstep their roles. And we kind of talked about this. So I always use the Batman analogy, and there's other analogies too. The best way I could kind of showcase or tell my clients their role in the journey is that you are the utility belt. Let them be the Batman. Batman is the hero. Now, Batman can't really be a great hero. They're still a hero even without the utility belt. Batman still is able to thwart off, the Joker, the Riddler, whatever, without the utility belt. But that utility belt elevates Batman to the ability to become the Dark Knight or the hero. So remember, you are the utility belt. They are the hero. And where I've seen this cross over too much is when we get so enamored, and not by nefarious reasons, but you just love your brand. Your brand can help this person, and you can help the person achieve this great stature or to get to a better place. But remembering that when you overstep that role, that boundary, and you become the hero, and you're the reason why Batman, you're the reason why you made it, to become the hero in the first place. You can actually have a negative effect. The brand can overstep their role so much that the customer looks at them and says they're arrogant. They only talk about themselves. And maybe I don't think many people will even be aware of it, but you will just lose some credibility because nobody wants to be told that they're not the hero in their own story. So always think of yourself as the utility belt. You're a part of their story, a very important part, by the way, but you're just a part of this story.
Yeah. So that's the part where, if we watch these movies with superheroes, they always highlight some insecurity, some little secret that they carry that reveals their vulnerability, that they could actually fail if this thing was exposed or if it came into play.
Because that narrative has been in our dialogue across every culture for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's that same story it feels right to us because it's been told by our ancestors and through movies and through our own real general lives that we all are never going to be the hero that we are. We all have our insecurities. We all have our faults, and we're aware of those as a matter of fact. And so the best stories, the best relationships between a brand and a customer is the realization that we are fragile. We do have these insecurities, but yet a brand can help us overcome just a little bit, overcome one of these insecurities, overcome a barrier, overcome a place where we're not equal to where we want to be, our aspirational self, and get them to a slightly better place. It's a job to be done. I mean, we talk about jobs to be done in our industry a lot. And Clayton Christensen, kind of created that word years and years ago about a brand's role is to help somebody get a job to be done. What he left out is that job is to get the customer to a slightly closer place to their idealized self, to becoming their own hero. And that's the part we got to remember.
I think about the utility belt in that case. So I used to watch the old series, Batman, and what was the guy's name? He was the clown. I was
going to say, the actor's name or the clown?
Yeah, the actor.
Wasn't it? I kept saying Burt, but that's not it. What is I remember. Adam West.
Adam West. All right. So perfect. So, but he always wore that belt around, and he would always get into some jam, and that belt would happen to have the little thing that helped him get past his shortfallings, right?
Yep.
And when you think about it, he didn't walk around with the belt swinging and bragging on the belt. It just came in handy every little situation at the right time. And that is how our brand is supposed to help our heroes.
I love the situation. I love that analogy because it's that situation. It's not the belt is not, or your brand is not made for every situation. But when that situation is needed, you are the only brand, hopefully, that can overcome or help in that situation. It's a great point. It's a really important point, actually.
Yeah. So I just remember Adam West looking at Robin and he just, the poison, why Batman did the poison not make you sick? And he goes, well, I drank some buttermilk a little while ago.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like buttermilk.
Yeah.
But just so your brand is to be the buttermilk in the right scenario at the right time, not the buttermilk with a capital B chasing around and opening the doors for Batman.
Yep. So I would just tell you guys, understanding these moments, because to your point, if you're trying to interject yourself in a moment where buttermilk is not needed, Steve, what are you doing? It doesn't matter, right?
Ooh.
Right. So what do you do? So let's say if you're a life insurance company out there, and I know life insurance and insurance companies know this very well. These moments matter. So when you reach 50 years old, people start looking at like, wow, I better start really considering life insurance. That's a huge kind of temporal kind of moment, if you will, landmark moment. The birth of a child is another big part. Like you're like, wow, when my child's born, you start looking and it's like, do I have life insurance so I can cover my kid? Or the death of a parent is another landmark where you're like, my parents didn't have life insurance, and now that burden has been placed on me, whatever that burden is. So if you're a company, think through when are these moments where you are the buttermilk, right? Where you are the right solution. And then you heavily find those moments and you put yourself in that moment. All right. I wrote here, triathlons. Do you know that the number one time that people sign up for triathlons are on their 40th birthday? Marathons are the same way. If you look at marathon runners, a ton of people just before their 40th birthday or just before their 50th birthday, they sign up for marathon training, they get the equipment for it, and they sign up for the race. Why? It's because people reflect, I always thought I'd, run a marathon before I'm 50 and I'm 48 or I'm 49. That's only a year away. I got to go do this. That's their aspirational goal. So if you're a company out there, think about these firsts, that I even laid out here. And what are these moments? Because if you're not speaking in those moments, you're less likely to be effective. Like you're just less likely to be effective because you're not the buttermilk when they need it. You are the buttermilk when they don't need it. It's great to know that you have buttermilk. It's great, but that's not what I need right now. So do that. Do the work, the due diligence of thinking through somebody's day, these landmark moments, these temporal landmarks, and figure out where your brand or category is being thought of. And it doesn't have to be these, big events. It could be the first day of the week. It could be the first week of the month, the first, month of the year. Like there's 80 some odd of these that are in the book that you could look at and go, yep, that would be a great place for me to start. Let me give you one last one. Fast food restaurant, maybe trying to serve healthy meals. If you know that on Mondays, people are looking at their bodies on Sundays over the weekend, they ate too many chicken wings. Mondays would be the day that you promote your healthy offering. If you're a restaurant, why? That you find that people eat healthier on Mondays. They eat really bad on Fridays, right? Because they've lost their discipline. So on Mondays are the day you promote your healthy stuff. And on Fridays and the weekends, you promote your less healthy stuff. Because it's this narrative, right? We are trying to be our aspirational selves on Mondays. And little by little, over the course of a week, we fall into old habits. So these are anybody out there can find these moments in time. You just got to do a little bit of diligence to kind of figure out which ones are right for you.
And this whole conversation again highlights why being human is a competitive advantage. By thinking of the folks that you're working with, they're humans with brains and aspirations and dreams. And by the only way you can relate with them is by being human yourself. And amazingly, it was a joke when we said it last time, but it's so true. Being human is a competitive advantage.
It is. It's we talked about it last time. It's We believe a lot of times that our competitive advantage is going to come through technology or some sort of a data firm that's going to show us things that we've never seen before. We know everything we need to succeed in marketing and in life by just being human, by realizing that our customers are human, we're human. If we treat people as human beings, eventually we have the competitive advantage that so few people don't have. So be human, everybody.
Be human. So in this episode of the Mindstate Marketing Hour, we talked a lot about narrative psychology, how understanding the things that people go through, the phases or the firsts, and why these are common. And even though we experience them and they're very important, there's a theme that runs through our lives that's based around the rules of story. And so in the Mindstate Marketing the Mind States book, it offers us a framework to really identify these things and connect with our client. So number one, throughout life, we strive to become our ideal aspirational selves. And to become our best selves, we're actually participating as a hero in our journey, and that a brand that understands that will help us reach success, however that fits into what your brand does. Number two, we get closer becoming heroes by reaching the conscious goals that we set and the non-conscious goals that society or others set for us. So to me, the conscious goals are the obvious goals, the features. I want to lift 200 pounds. But actually what's going on as far as the non-conscious, there's a reason why I set that goal, why I wrote it on the board or whatever, is like, I feel like a loser. I will really want to hold myself accountable to something. I'm just kind of ashamed of the way I let myself deteriorate. So that's something I want to get. Our brand messaging that really understands that and connects us with us right there makes us feel safe and understood. So you're not going to walk up and go, Will, now I know you're feeling like a loser. Okay. But it's like, Will, I understand that this is something that's important to you now that you're starting to realize, I'm at this certain age and I need to get focused on this so I can not feel so weak. Yeah. And so that's like, oh, how did you know that, Steve? I didn't say that. Well, I relate. I feel the same way. Okay. And so that's how your brand can really start to connect and be the utility belt. Brands that guide people along this journey become memorable and important. So in the example of the Ironman, there's so many examples. There are stories where when women become pregnant, the brands that they chose before they were pregnant and the brands that they choose after that have this opportunity to reset with them. So that's the first pregnancy as well. Number four, and how this can be especially true in the key points such as the temporal landmarks, where humans, we aim at things, we go on a journey, on a path to somewhere, and for brands to really realize that and help provide the tools, the shoes, the maps, the protection, the sunscreen, whatever that is, to help us on our journey, that's who we want to carry with us and reach in our backpack at that little time when we want a snack by the little river in the forest with our loved ones.
That's right.
But be careful. Don't overstep your role. Just go along to support, be understanding, be like that mom that just always hands you the tissue when your nose is runny.
Yeah, I like that.
So tell us a little bit more on this Mindstate Marketing Workshop where we could learn a little bit about this together in a teaching environment.
That's right. We are trying to teach our clients to gain a competitive advantage by being human, my friend. So every month we do a 2-day marketing workshop. And this next one is happening in early November. You can learn more about it at mindstategroup.com. And what we do is we spend 2 days together where we go through a series of activities to work you through how to identify these moments and mind states in these moments, and then actually teach you how to apply, what's called behavioral design. But some of the concepts we're talking about, the watch example was one of them, right? On how to better your marketing, ultimately to get your clients or get customers to listen, care, and act. And the idea is if you can break through the noise, get people to listen, and you can create this emotional engagement, get them to care, they will act. So we teach you the whole process to do that over the course of 2 days.
To your unique situation.
That's right.
You can learn more about this at www.mindstategroup.com. Of course, you can buy Will's book everywhere that books are sold.
Marketing Mind States.
Yeah, I bet they're on some of your professors' desks. I bet they're out there. You've seen it maybe even and didn't know that you were close to a very famous book.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Will, anything else you want to share with us before we hang up and get back to our lives in Mexico?
Yes, so you're on a journey right now, Steve. So no, it's great talking to you. I love having these weekly events, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week.
All right, and that's right. So every day, every Wednesday, actually every week, every first Wednesday of every week, we're having the Mindstate Marketing Hour, right, Will?
It's a temporal landmark for you guys. You can reset every Wednesday if you're marketing. I'm going to re-improve my marketing. So let's set up a new temporal landmark. It's going to be your first, and just keep doing the first. But we're here to help you guys and just have a great conversation. So thanks for facilitating.
All right. Thanks for watching, folks. We appreciate you. Be sure to let us know if there's topics you're interested in. And we'll see you next week at the same bat time, bat channel, wearing the same Batman utility belt. Sorry. All right, Will. That's a wrap.
Thanks, Steve.